Om Gurubhyo Namaha. My first obeisance is to God Almighty, who has inspired me to give the Gandhi Katha. My second obeisance is to the Mahatma, whose life enlightens us all from inside out, whose faith and endeavor can be a role model for all of us at all times and in all ages. And my third obeisance is to the Lokatma, to all of you who have joined me today and whose eyes give me strength. Welcome to the Gandhi Katha, story of Mahatma Gandhi, narrated by me during the commemoration of the 150th birth anniversary of Mahatma Gandhi, which incidentally is also the 150th birth anniversary of Kasturba Gandhi, his wife. Kasturba Gandhi's sacrifice, suffering, and the contribution in making Mohan into the Mahatma and inspiring thousands of women to fight against injustice and racial discrimination in South Africa, as well as in the Indian freedom struggle, is extraordinary. I pay my humble obeisance to the Matru Shakti, to all the women who comprise 50% of the world's population. I thank the Gandhi Peace Foundation Nepal and Sri Lal Bahadur Rana for hosting the Gandhi Katha amidst this very challenging times of the coronavirus COVID-19 pandemic. And it's a very difficult time for everyone. In the Gandhi Katha, I will talk about Mahatma Gandhi's spirituality, his ashram life, and the practice of health and wellness of body, mind, and spirit for coping up and staying safe physically, mentally, emotionally, and spiritually during and after the coronavirus COVID-19 pandemic, which has affected the entire humanity. I will also talk about Gandhiji's and Kasturba Gandhi's contribution during the public health emergencies and service of humanity, which offers great learning. I convey my warm wishes to the people of Nepal and India who have joined me online today. We stand in solidarity with you all in our common fight against the coronavirus COVID-19 pandemic. Gandhi Katha is based on the ancient Indian oral tradition of Katha or storytelling with bhajans, hymns, and narrations from our scriptures. In a way, Gandhi Katha is unique because all the Kathas in India are the stories of people who lived thousands of years ago. This is the first Katha of its kind about a person who lived amongst us and in our present days who made a significant impact on humanity. In today's Gandhi Katha, Srimati Swati Bhagat and Sri Deepak Kalra will be singing the bhajans and dhun. The technical support and the presentation are by Dr. Ravi Chopra. The Gandhi Katha dhun in Hindi have been composed by late Sri Narayan Desai ji, my mentor, and I am very grateful to all of them. Gandhiji used to begin and end his days with prayers. These were prayers from all the religions of the world. Sarva Dharma Prarthana. Gandhiji said that ultimately all the religions point to the same truth of compassion, love, and forgiveness, and that everyone must study the essence of all the religions in an attitude of perfect reverence and must have friendship and respect for the practitioners of different religions and diverse cultures. All of Gandhiji's friends were from different religions and cultural background from around the world. One of his legacies to the world is non-violent conflict resolution through interfaith dialogues for bringing about peace, harmony, and brotherhood. I will begin Gandhi Katha with the Sanskrit Mantra from the Taittiriya Upanishad, which is Om Sahana Bhavatu, Sahanau Bhunaktu, Sahaviryam Karvavahai, Tejasvina Vadhitamastu, Ma Vidvishavahai. May God
सहनावतु सहनौ भुनक्तु सह वीर्यं करवावहै तेजस्विनावधीतमस्तु तेजस्विनावधीतमस्तु
Last year, I visited 33 countries and gave 148 talks and Gandhi Katha. From April onwards this year, I have reached out to 54 countries with the online Gandhi Katha. In all the countries, people have great reverence and respect for Mahatma Gandhi. Many have taken inspiration from him and taken up the cudgels against injustice through non-violence. Others have followed his environmental credo, and still others have been deeply touched by his spiritual, simple life. The new generation is eager to understand more about the greatest man of the last century who made such a huge impact on humanity and inspired many world leaders such as Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., Nelson Mandela, Father Desmond Tutu, Father Combs, Saint Teresa, Khan Abdul Ghaffar Khan, Caesar Chavez, George Bernard Shaw, His Holiness the Dalai Lama, and amongst many others was Shri Tulsi Mehar Shrestha from Nepal. Gandhiji and Kasturba Gandhi had returned to India in 1945 after spending close to 20 years in South Africa. And I will stand corrected, they came back in 1915 at the age of 45 years. For 1 year, Gandhiji traveled across India. His political mentor, Gopalakrishna Gokhaleji, had told him to first understand India by going all around the country. So both of them traveled by third class by train, and for the whole 1 year he traveled and understood people. In 1917, he established the Sabarmati Ashram in Ahmedabad, Gujarat. And immediately after that, he got active in mobilizing Indian masses, which started from Champaran Satyagraha in 1917. His legacy in Nepal is not borne out by statues and roads named after him, but the charkha is known to all in Nepal. Indeed, even the building of Gandhi Bhavan in Kathmandu's Tribhuvan University is designed like a charkha. Popularizing the charkha was the work of Gandhiji's ardent Nepalese disciple, Tulsi Mehar Shrestha, who was born in Kathmandu in 1896. Early from a young age, he showed signs of being a social reformer. For his work and for his leadership for Satyacharan Malimi Guthi, he was convicted for the activities and was given punishment of long imprisonment or exile from Nepal. Shrestha sought exile and was allowed to go to Sabarmati Ashram in Ahmedabad in 1920 and promised to return with a skill. So in Sabarmati Ashram, there were many children, and all the children did not consider Mahatma Gandhi as the political leader, nor even Mahatma Gandhi, not even Bapu of the ashram. They merely considered him as their friend, with whom children could go out and have a swim in the Sabarmati river, could splash water on each other, could play together, would eat together, and during Janmashtami and Ramnavami, or even Hartalika, which we all celebrated yesterday, Gandhiji used to whisper in the ears of the children if they had kept any role for him. Such was the friendship that Gandhiji gave to children who were almost 50 years younger than him. And this friendship was not only for the children of the ashram, this respect and love was for the entire inmates of the ashram, to everybody beyond the borders of the ashram also, and to many people beyond the borders of the country as well. This is because Gandhiji used to treat individuals as individuals without attaching labels. He extended the same respect, love, and compassion to everybody. So, here in this ashram, Tulsi Shrestha ji came, and his simplicity and industry soon made him one of Gandhiji's personal assistant, spending long hours personally serving the Mahatma. He also learned to spin the charkha and weave cloth for himself. And I have also learned to spin the charkha from the age of 5 years, and I can weave my cloth. But after 5 years, Tulsi Meherji returned to Nepal after Gandhiji interceded with the Prime Minister of Nepal. So he brought back charkhas and some bales of cotton. And because of his untiring work, charkha became popular in Nepal. The world is in the grip of immense crisis now. Only the power of Mahatma Gandhi's weapons of peace and non-violence and living in harmony with nature is capable of shaking the souls of human beings to bring about transformation in their lives by cutting through international borders, space, and time. In these times of the pandemic, wherever humankind has found the need to express its inner voice of the soul, they have to go to Mahatma Gandhi, because the Mahatma's life is a struggle to find the Almighty. He had said, "My life is my message." Dr. Gene Sharp, the American political scientist, writer on nonviolent struggle, and the founder of the Albert Einstein Institution, drew ideas and inspiration from the thinking and life of Mahatma Gandhi. He said, and I quote, "Gandhi also exhibited a remarkable sense of political strategy in his implementation of nonviolence on a mass scale. His approach to nonviolence was based on the moral principle of refusing to use violence against opponents." Mahatma Gandhi is the most powerful visionary and the practical idealist from the first half of the last century, who is a role model for all of us. But the effort has to begin from the point where you're standing. That is what made all Mahatma Gandhi's idealistic action practical. And he can be truly called a man of action. But it does not only mean he was very busy. What we mean is the action of putting ideas or beliefs into practice more than anything else was the driving force in his life. The answer for Mahatma Gandhi was always found in action. He had said, "An ounce of practice is worth more than tons of preaching." The greatest scientist of the last century, Albert Einstein, called him the supreme practical leader of change. And he had said, "Generations to come will scarce believe that such a one like this, in flesh and blood, ever walked on this earth and listening to his own voice."
I believe that Gandhi's views were the most enlightened of all the political men in our time. We should strive to do things in his spirit, not to use violence in fighting for our cause, but by non-participation in anything you believe is evil.
According to my understanding, Mahatma Gandhi's life was an epic of faith and endeavor. His faith was in truth, the ultimate reality of truth, and he endeavored to attain it through non-violence throughout his life till the very last breath. Gandhiji's adherence to truth, non-violence, and purity of means has inspired me to give Gandhi Katha so that people can put their hearts into understanding Gandhiji, get inspired to learn from his extraordinary ethical and moral leadership, his spiritual life, revolutionary thoughts, actions, his lifelong service to humanity against all forms of injustice, and how he continues to inspire people in all parts of the globe at all times and in all ages. Perhaps the greatest source of strength for Mahatma Gandhi was in his faith in God. Truth was the deepest and the most complete form of God. The faith gave him the constant awareness that he was to be nothing but an instrument in his hands. He was to go wherever he was led. For him, the guidance of God constituted two things. One, he had to walk on the path enlightened by truth that was available to him in whatever measures and form. Two, he had to constantly gaze inwards and find inspiration through self introspection, self examination, and self purification. Gandhiji did this by repeated questioning, and that question has been asked in our Indian civilization since the past 5,000 years. That question was, Ko aham, who am I? What am I? And what is the purpose of my life? The answer came to Gandhiji that there is only one purpose of life, and that is to serve others. Gandhiji said, Truth is God. Satya hi Parmeshwar hai. Faith in truth led Mahatma Gandhi to two other realizations. If God is omnipresent, and if each human being were an aspect of God, then each person was capable of being good, being truthful, and doing good to others. The second one was that, in spite of all the upheavals in the history of humankind, human being will only move towards an auspicious direction because truth, that is God, is only interested in the welfare of its creation. His endeavor throughout his life was devoted to the search of that element of truth, to awaken it and to nurture it. This is why he could feel oneness with everyone. For most of us, this realization does not set in easily. Sometimes it does not come at all. Because of the understanding of oneness, Gandhiji had no enemies. He did not want to settle scores with anyone. He did not want to take any revenge. He merely wanted to extend his love, compassion, courtesy, and respect for everyone. This is the other trait that we see in Gandhiji. Gandhiji used to remain positive and calm under all circumstances. And that was another of his traits, but one of the main traits. He had faced many challenges in life. I think as the world is reeling under the impact of coronavirus COVID-19 pandemic, we should face it humbly with reverence to the virus, gratitude and surrender to the divine forces which are beyond our control, fearlessly, intelligently, and with a positive outlook towards life. The more positive and calm we, the ordinary people, will remain, the sooner we'll be able to take this situation in an auspicious direction. For Gandhiji, this was his way of life. William James Will Durant, the American writer, historian, and philosopher, best known for writing The Story of Civilization, spoke some most inspirational words ever about the Mahatma. He said, and I quote, "Not since Buddha has India so revered any man, not since Saint Francis of Assisi has any life known to history been so marked by gentleness, disinterestedness, simplicity of soul, and forgiveness of enemies. We have the astonishing phenomenon of a revolution led by a saint." Now I will play the Gandhi Katha dhun, which explains his relentless quest for truth and non-violence.
आंखें पवित्र राख सत्य ही तू बोल, आंखें पवित्र राख सत्य ही तू बोल, ईश्वर साक्षात होंगे अंतर टटोल, ईश्वर साक्षात होंगे अंतर टटोल, सत्य ही है परमेश्वर बापू का बोल, सत्य ही है परमेश्वर बापू का बोल, उसी परमेश्वर की नित्य कर तू शोध, उसी परमेश्वर की नित्य कर तू शोध, आंखें पवित्र राख सत्य ही तू बोल, आंखें पवित्र राख सत्य ही तू बोल, ईश्वर साक्षात होंगे अंतर टटोल, ईश्वर साक्षात होंगे अंतर टटोल, ईश्वर साक्षात होंगे अंतर टटोल.
Three simultaneously difficult situations that are happening now globally. The first one is the coronavirus COVID-19 pandemic, which is causing immense physical and mental stress, sickness, deaths, anxiety, panic, and existential crisis. The second is the financial crisis, which is also causing great physical and mental anguish. And the third is the ecological crisis, which is impacting everyone and compounding the stress. We have to look for answers somewhere within ourselves by learning from the life of Mahatma Gandhi. The lesson the pandemic is teaching is very simple. When one member of the family falls sick, the entire family is affected, and soon the community is affected, the nation is affected, and then other communities in other countries in this globalized world. The well being of one individual has an impact on people on the other side of the globe. This is true of every action of ours. What we eat, what we buy, what we think, and what we do has reverberations and repercussions on all life on earth. It is this anubandha, this interconnectedness that sustains all life on earth. We are all in this together as one human family. We may be living anywhere in the world, we may belong to any region, speak any language, but we are all brothers and sisters, whether we choose to see it or not, irrevocably interrelated and interdependent on each other, and have only one home, this planet Earth, our Mother Earth. The current COVID-19 pandemic is a wake-up call for every country, big or small, rich or poor, developed or developing. It has opened our eyes to the fragility of the existence of humans. Gandhiji had said that key to good health is prayer, nature cure, meditation, nutritious food, clean water, fresh air, physical and mental exercise, amongst other things. In short, during and after the coronavirus COVID 19 pandemic, we need to invest in preventive measures for self care and nurture not so sick. Mahatma Gandhi was around 19 or 20 years of age, and as a student of law in London, his curiosity was aroused about the various religions, and he made acquaintances with new thinkers and reformers in England. He read the works of the great philosophers and poets and enlarged his vision. At that time, two theosophist friends of his came to Gandhiji wanting to study Sir Edward Arnold's translation of the Bhagavad-Gita in English called the Song Celestial along with the original Sanskrit text. Gandhiji did not know Sanskrit. He had paid more attention to Farsi in his school, but he accepted the challenge and studied both the texts together. The second chapter of the Bhagavad Gita talks about Samkhya Yoga and describes the qualities of the person of steadfast wisdom known as Sthita Prajna. Two shlokas from the second chapter made deep impression on him. Dhyayato Vishayan Pumsa Sangasteshu Pajayate Sangat Sanjayate Kamaha Kamat Krodho Bijayate. While contemplating on the objects of the senses, one develops attachment to them. Attachment leads to desire, and from desire arises anger. Krodhat bhavati sammoha, sammohat smriti vibhramaha, smriti bhranshad buddhinasho, buddhinashat pranashyati. Anger leads to clouding of judgment, which results in bewilderment of memory. When the memory is bewildered, the intellect gets destroyed. In 1925, Gandhiji wrote his autobiography called My Experiments with Truth. In that he wrote, "The verse in the second chapter made a deep impression on my mind, and they still ring in my ears. The book struck me as one of priceless worth. The impression has ever since been growing on me, with the result that I regard it today as the book par excellence for the knowledge of truth. It has afforded me invaluable advice and helped me in my moments of gloom." In the ashrams, Gandhiji used to hold morning and evening prayers. Every evening, 18 shlokas from the Bhagavad Gita used to be recited. Mahatma Gandhi understood the essence of the second chapter and followed a straight path of Swadharma, which is the path of the inner calling, realized the impermanence of the body and used it only for Swadharma, and bore in mind that the spirit is all pervasive and omnipresent and can be cast away, and he must cast away all the differentiation of mine and yours. Mahatma Gandhi lived according to the central messages of the Bhagavad Gita of living selflessly without attachment and possession. And after his sadhana and conduct of 38 years, in accordance with the Bhagavad Gita, in 1929, he wrote his translation and the commentary of the Gita in his book called Anasakti Yoga, the Gospel of Selfless Action. Mahatma Gandhiji's trait was that he was not jealous of anyone. He was compassionate and forgiving. He was free from attachment. He rose above his personal joys and sorrows and shared the joys and sorrows of others. Remained calm and content always. He made his decision, and once made, he did not change the decision and all the time surrendered the body and intellect to God. He taught Indians to be fearless, and his definition of fearlessness or abhaya was that one should not be afraid of anyone and no one should be afraid of the person. He had equanimity towards friends and foes. In his eyes, honor and insults were the same. He did not get overwhelmed with praise and saddened with criticism. He practiced silence and had a steady mind engaged in prayers and Ramanama. In 1904, in South Africa, after reading John Ruskin's book, Unto This Last, Barrister Mohandas Gandhi transformed his life and started leading a community life of self control, voluntary poverty, bread labor, and sarvodaya, welfare of all. He established 4 ashrams in his lifetime, 2 in South Africa called Phoenix Settlement in 1904, Tolstoy Farm in 1910, and in India he established Sabarmati Ashram in 1917 and Sevagram Ashram in 1936, where Kasturba Gandhi and Mahatma Gandhi lived in poverty like the common villagers of India. This was his ideal of a non-violent face-to-face society for Sarvodaya, for welfare of all, and carrying out the constructive programs or Rachanatmak Karyakram, which is his second gift to humanity, the first being Satyagraha. I am happy to inform you that I was born in his last ashram, the Sevagram ashram. My father was inspired by Gandhiji since his childhood and joined the non-violent freedom struggle in India and lived in the Sevagram ashram. Even after Gandhiji passed on in 1948, for more than 5 decades, my parents and all of us have continued to walk on the path that Gandhiji had shown to humanity. So, what I'm telling you is based on what my parents have told me, my own understanding and experience of Gandhiji, who has inspired generations of people who have followed his path and continue to do so even today. One of the qualities of Gandhiji was that he was totally transparent and open. Anyone could visit his ashrams, of course, with a prior engagement, discuss with him or argue with him. In the Bapukuti, where Gandhiji used to sit with his back against the wooden plank, hundreds of people used to come to meet him during the day, and he would sit facing the guest, visitor. To save Gandhiji's time, the ashram management had put up a board above the wooden plank with 3 sentences in English. And the first one was, "Be quick." The second one was, "Be brief." And the third one was very difficult, as it said, "Be gone." People who could meet him only went back for about 2 minutes, went back totally satisfied, and said that even in those 2 minutes, Gandhiji poured himself into their heart, entered their hearts. Gandhiji was a very great listener. He could even read the unspoken words of the adversaries. This was one of his traits. Another was that he treated all tasks as God-given tasks without attaching label. The children of the ashram, when they grew up and became adolescents and came to Sevagram, Gandhiji had changed. He had become a very strict taskmaster. Every task had to be done with efficiency and sincerity and promptly, and everyone had to participate in the common community activities. In the ashram, there were 4 community activities. It started with community prayers in the morning, then community sanitation, community eating, and community spinning. During the community sanitation and cleaning that used to take place after the prayers for 45 minutes every day, Gandhiji and all the children and all the inmates of the ashram used to carry brooms and baskets and spades to clean up the ashram premises, the surrounding, and especially the toilets. Gandhiji was a stickler for cleanliness, sanitation, and hygiene. Reginald Arthur Reynolds, the British writer, a Quaker, and an anti colonial activist, lived in Gandhiji's Sabarmati ashram from 1929 to 1931. Reynolds was impressed by Gandhiji's vitality, his vision, his honesty, tactical and strategic abilities, his charm, his sense of humor, his logical and analytical mind, yet capable of real affection, and the scorching passion for truth. Ashram life was a life of strict routine from 4 a.m. to 9 p.m. It was a life of voluntary self control, punctuality, discipline, promptness, minimalistic living, living in harmony with nature, following the environmental credo of Gandhiji of minimum use of resources, recycling, reusing, and reducing, treating oneself through nature cure, having simple vegetarian diet, working to everybody used to work to grow all the food and vegetables, caring and sharing, walking and exercise, and ever being vigilant for using every minute of time in the service of humanity. Time is the only non renewable resource that all of us have, and we must use time very carefully, as Gandhiji did. He is the role model of punctuality, promptness, and discipline, and we need to learn from him to utilize every moment of time. Our friend and the British Quaker, Horace Alexander, called Gandhiji the slave of the watch, as the bell in the ashram used to ring 56 times. Gandhiji's unique practices of silence, prayers, fasting, and spinning gave him the internal strength. Gandhiji carried out his experiments in health and wellness through nature cure, diet control, fasting, hydrotherapy, sun bath, mud packs, and observing silence for one whole day. The ashram inmates not only participated but modified and validated them and still continue to practice to this day. This points to the relevance of these practices. Gandhiji has given three gifts to humanity, and that is Satyagraha, about which many people have heard and know a little about it, constructive programs about which many people do not know much, and the third one is Ekadasha Vrata, or the 11 observances, which were a set of rules for the ashram inmates for their spiritual progress and voluntary self control. The principle behind the 11 observances were do unto others as you want others to do to you. Any rule that is followed for a lifetime becomes an observance. And those vratas were non-violence, truth, non-stealing, chastity, non-possession, bread labor, control of the palate, fearlessness, equality of all religions, Swadeshi, and removal of untouchability. Ivan Illich, Croatian Austrian philosopher, who came in 1978 to Sevagram Ashram and sat in Bapu Kuti for a long time, said, and I quote, "The hut of Mahatma Gandhi demonstrates to the world how the dignity of the common man can be brought up. It is also a symbol of happiness which we can derive from practicing the principles of simplicity, service, and truthfulness." In 1936, an American priest, Father Mote, had come to India to attend the All Religious Conference in Madras. He made a special visit to Sevagram Ashram. He had a set of 10 questions to ask, so he was asked to write it down. And one question was, he wanted Gandhiji to explain the essence of Indian culture in 3 words. Gandhiji said, renounce and rejoice, tyago or bhogo. This is from the first verse of the Isha Upanishad, the shortest Upanishad, the sacred scripture from India, which used to be recited in the morning and evening prayers. Ishavasya sarvam yat kincha jagatyan jagat tena tyaktena bhunjitha magradha kasya svidhanam. That everything in this universe belongs to God. Nothing belongs to you. Enjoy the objects of the world in an attitude of perfect non attachment. Enjoy it with a feeling of sacrifice, taking to the extent that is necessary for you, and leave the rest for others in the society. Never ever crave the possession of others. Nothing really belongs to you. I will play the Gandhi Katha dhun Naya Tera Naya Mera, which explains this philosophy. Though Gandhiji's role and contribution to the political arena are well known, what is less known is his contribution towards health and well being. Not many people are aware that he was interested in studying medicine and wanted to become a medical practitioner. Gandhiji was a firm believer in the principle that a healthy mind keeps the body healthy, and he stressed the importance of a healthy lifestyle and positive thinking. His interest in health, hygiene, nutrition, and diseases was as great as his interest in politics. He insisted that adopting preventive measures for diseases was better than treatment. He also said that it was important to focus on cleanliness, a controlled diet, and an exercise regimen, and it was best to avoid overconsumption of medicines, especially those that were not required. Mahatma Gandhi's message to the world on the vital question of health and well being is very important. To him, the study of this question was part of the service to God and His creation, which was his mission. Knowing to care summed up his life. His message was simple and easy to follow. It encouraged everyone to respect simplicity, voluntary self control, reduce the bonds, follow the tradition, the cultural practices, and the values. Follow the environmental credo, nature cure, etc., for living in harmony with nature. His attire represented his message to lead a simple life of voluntary poverty. His teachings included instructions on the manner of dress, personal health, hygiene habits, vegetarian diet, values, and making choices that reflect the nation's true spirit. He was a great advocate of nature cure, which he followed rigorously on himself for taking good care of his body. Very few people know that as a couple, Gandhiji and Kasturba Gandhi contributed immensely 123 years ago to public health emergencies and service of humanity. He had dedicated his life to serving the entire humanity. which started by serving his parents in his childhood in India. In 1896, Barrister Mohandas Karamchand Gandhi took training in nursing in Cottage Hospital in South Africa and volunteered in taking care of the patients. In 1897, he treated a native leprosy patient who was desperately seeking help, who had come to meet Gandhiji at his home in Durban. He cleaned up the wounds and then kept him at home and later on shifted him to the hospital. And this leprosy eradication was one of the constructive programs that he continued in Sevagram Ashram also. During the Anglo-Boer War of 1888 to 1902 and the Zulu uprising of 1906, Barrister Mohandas Karamchand Gandhi established the Indian Natal Ambulance Corps, and along with 300 free Indians and 800 Indian indentured labor, helped in carrying the grievously wounded prisoners of war as stretcher bearers. In the bubonic plague outbreak in Johannesburg in 1904, he and Kasturba Gandhi rushed to help the Indian indentured labor, quarantined the patients, and treated them through nature cure. Gandhiji and Kasturba Gandhi had returned to India in 1915. In the Spanish flu pandemic, Spanish influenza pandemic of 1918, Gandhiji opened up his Sabarmati ashram as a quarantine center, treated and served patients through nature cure, gave them a simple diet to boost immunity, and maintained physical distancing. The couple took care of the families of the patients by counseling them to maintain physical distancing, looked after their mental and spiritual needs through prayers and meditation, Ramanama, gave accurate information, and helped them in remaining positive and to take care of each other during the time of the Spanish flu pandemic. In 1918, on 10 November, Gandhiji had said, "Our ancestors could build such a tough bodies in the past, but today we are reduced to a state of miserable weakness and are easily infected by noxious germs moving about in the air. There is one and only one really effective way by which we can save ourselves from them even in our present broken state of health. That way is the way of self-restraint, sanyam, and of imposing a limit on our acts, desires, and wants. During the Spanish flu pandemic, it was physical distancing, wearing masks, and remaining in quarantine that had saved the world, particularly the developed ones back then. And that is what Gandhiji advised people to do. We can certainly learn from Gandhiji's example and not pass on the infection to others. In the COVID-19 crisis, people are discovering just how much control they have over their thoughts, which is very little. In a crisis, fear and anxiety start to roam the mind, and struggling against them does only a little good, which is temporary at best. That is why so many people turn to denial and distractions. They try to deny their fearful thoughts and turn to distractions to escape them through all kinds of things. Arnold Joseph Toynbee, British leading historian and philosopher of history, had said, and I quote, "The generation into which I happen to have been born has not only been Hitler's generation in the West and Stalin's in Russia, it has also been Gandhi's in India. And it can already be forecast with some confidence that Gandhi's effect on human history is going to be greater and more lasting than Stalin's or Hitler's." Gandhiji was very interested in health and wellness and remained ever vigilant about his health as well as the health of others. He said that our lifestyle should be such that it should not let any disease come anywhere near us, and every person is responsible for looking after his or her body, mind, and spirit impeccably. Gandhiji always experimented with his diet and was greatly interested in theory and practice of dietetics. He was also able to continue with his workload, possibly because of his daily routine of walking 18 kilometers. From 1913 to 1948, he walked around 79,000 kilometers, which is equivalent to walking round the earth twice. I will play the Gandhi Katha dhun, which talks about Gandhiji's philosophy of satyagraha, truth.
रोम को मिटा
Portrait of the readers of the Indian Opinion newspaper in South Africa. In or about the year 1906, Gandhiji wrote a few articles under the heading Guide to Health. He was constantly experimenting with his health through nature cure and diet since his student days in London and advised others also. In August 1942, when Gandhiji was leading the Quit India movement and was imprisoned in Aga Khan Palace jail in Pune, he wrote the book Key to Health. And in the preface, he wrote that it was translated into several Indian languages. An English translation also appeared that reached the West, and it was translated in several European languages. The result was that the book became the most popular of his writings. He said that I have never been able to understand the reason for this popularity, but perhaps the reason for the popularity can be sought in the fact that I have looked upon the problem of health from a novel point of view, somewhat different from the orthodox methods adopted by doctors and Vaidyas. I am giving it a new name, Key to Health. Anyone who observes the rules of health mentioned in this book will find that he has got in it a real key to unlock the gates leading him to health. He will not need to knock at the doors of the doctors or Vaidyas from day to day. One can take health and fitness tips from Mahatma Gandhi, which are rising early, prayers, meditation, leading a disciplined life, maintaining a strict routine, nature cure, fasting, a frugal diet, silence, positive thinking, walking and exercise, Shramadan, vegetarianism, no alcohol and tobacco, simple spiritual life, cleanliness and sanitation, compassion, forgiveness and silence. Gandhiji comes out as the greatest healer and the wellness guru who comes free of cost during and after the coronavirus COVID-19 pandemic. Gandhiji was the first environmentalist, and with his stunning premonition and knowledge, he had predicted that the earth has enough for man's needs, but not for man's greed. Greed will be the main reason for the environmental degradation and the ecological crisis he had predicted almost a century ago. Further, he had said, the earth, the air, the land, and the water are not an inheritance from our forefathers, but on loan from our children. So we have to hand it over to them as it was handed over to us. Last year on 2nd October, I was invited to deliver the keynote address at the United Nations Regional Office in Vienna and release the stamp along with others, which was brought out by the UN Postal Department with this quote. So we have to learn to live with COVID 19 now and in the future as well. Instead of reinventing a new lifestyle, we just have to get inspired from the life of Mahatma Gandhi to make the necessary changes in thought, actions, and conduct for coping up physically, mentally, and spiritually. And this is the future that the coronavirus COVID 19 pandemic is pointing out to us if we observe carefully. Many lessons are very clear, and some are still unknown, surrounding us in uncertainty. This uncertainty is causing mental stress, anxiety, existential crisis, fear of extinction, death, and the mass psychology of living in depression and grief is pointing out towards the fact in the current pandemic we are collectively grieving for the loss of our known lifestyle. When a crisis makes you feel stressed, meditation and prayer relieve the stress response. Fear and anxiety are forms of stress that become exaggerated when events become uncertain, when you feel a loss of control over the situation, and when the stress keeps mounting, being repeating itself. The thinking mind reacts to all these conditions. It always has, even in the normal times. But a crisis brings stress into high relief, making it very capable of lowering the immune system of our body and causing inflammatory diseases. Our ancient seers and sages have always looked upon us as Vishwamanava, the global citizen, and said that the world is one family, Vasudhaiva Kutumbakam. If we still return to the normal standard of finding happiness by chasing after money, power, position, and wealth, lifelong consumerism, then COVID 19 has given us the wake up call. This kind of lifestyle of empty consumerism and mass distraction has only increased the difference between the rich and the poor, created the huge carbon footprint, increased the misery of the invisible poor. So we have to follow the lifestyle of Gandhiji that he had shown nearly 72 years ago. I will end with the Sanskrit shloka, which is a peace benediction for the universal welfare. Om Sarve Bhavantu Sukhinah, Sarve Santu Niramayaha, Sarve Bhadrani Pashyantu, Ma Kaschid Dukha Bhag Bhavet. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Let all be happy. Let all be healthy. Let all experience auspiciousness. Let no one be overwhelmed by grief. Om, peace, peace, peace. I once again take this opportunity to thank the Gandhi Peace Foundation and Sri Rana for organizing this Katha, hosting it online. My special thanks to all of you who have joined me online today and given me the most precious gift, the gift of your time. With Gandhiji's blessings, who had said that peace is the only positive force which will lead us from darkness towards light. I will end this evening's Gandhi Katha with the dhun Shubhamangal Ho. May there be auspicious good. May there be good. May the earth be auspicious. May the sky be auspicious. May every particle on earth be auspicious.
Shubha